Hi, I wanted to cook up a quick video to go along with a blog post I recently released. The long and the short of it is attackers are using sites that are configured with wildcard DNS entries and also contain cross-site scripting flaws as free attack platforms to craft more convincing spear phishing attacks against end users. I wanted to demonstrate it and enable folks who are defenders to possibly look at their log entries and folks who are assessors and testers to bring these issues to light to their folks that they're assessing and testing to identify these, because I'm seeing this more and more during client engagements. It also adds a little bit of proof in the pudding to those cross-site scripting flaws that you found on your pen tests. So let's demonstrate the issue first of the wildcard DNS. We're going to go to my test domain here, cyber.co, and we see hi. Now we notice if I go to anything before that, primary domain, blah.cyber, we see it resolves. And then it resolves to the same path that was being viewed. I think you're starting to see the issue here. If you put anything before the primary domain here, it's going to resolve right to that main website. And the reason is because in my DNS settings, I have an A record that has a star. It's a wildcard. It says anything before my primary domain is going to resolve to this value, which is the IP address of my primary domain. Now, the research that I mentioned in the blog from years ago shows that millions of sites have this, and there are maybe perhaps legitimate reasons to have it. If you host your website on WordPress.com and let them manage your DNS, even if you have your own DNS name like I do, if WordPress.com is managing it for you, you don't have a choice. You have a wildcard DNS entry and you can't delete it. The only thing you can do is host your DNS on a third-party site, which I will be doing in a bit. So you get the idea. Wildcard DNS, that's the first issue. Now the second issue, let's talk about briefly cross-site scripting, because this is a tired and tried and true cross-site scripting issue. Nothing new here, but we're going to talk about how it's used by attackers. So here I have this phishing website. I thought that was kind of apropos. I cloned it down, and I've set it for the HTTP user parameter to be echoed back on the screen as is, no sanitization. So we see that anything that is supplied to user is just echoed right back. Now you see this in search forms, showing you what you just recently searched for perhaps, or echoing a username parameter, whatever the case may be, but there's no sanitization going on here, which means anything I put in there, including stuff like JavaScript code or HTML syntax, is going to be just simply printed out on the screen. Now let's see what happens here. What I have is script tags and a JavaScript alert pop-up box. When I visit this, the pop-up is going to pop, which means that the JavaScript was executed. This is one of the most common ways that folks like to demonstrate cross-site scripting flaws. Some people are confused by it, they don't understand, so let's try and understand it real quick. So here we see the JavaScript code that I put in the URL is executed. Now we also look here and see the user parameter has been echoed back to the page, but we don't see the other things we added there, the script tags. Well, the reason being is if you look at the source code of this website, we'll see that the website has actually interpreted those script tags as part of the HTML source and rendered that JavaScript tags and executed them. So that is cross-site scripting 101. So now let's talk about the real issue here, which is the combination of wildcard DNS and cross-site scripting and how it can be abused by attackers. So if we look at this URL here, visit it, all right, we look like we have a login page. So let's load this up, take a look. If we see, the first part here looks like login.legitbank.com, has a whole bunch of cruft after it. If I'm a user, an average user, I'm going to see a login to a site that I know and trust and say, good enough for me. All this other cruft in the back end, I don't know. They're going to say, what am I, a scientist? I don't know what all this stuff means. I just know I need to go because this email says I need to log into my bank to do something. So that's the first issue, is they can craft URLs that the user may trust because of the wildcard DNS entry. Now, here's the issue. It's going to a page with cross-site scripting. Rather than doing a pop-up box, which wouldn't really help an attacker that much, I'm using inner HTML. What inner HTML is going to do is take everything here, which is an HTML form, and it's going to write it to the screen. So that's what's happened. If we actually look at the source here, I am sitting on that topphishingsites.com site that I cloned, and this content is all from that site from earlier. What's happened is the JavaScript has rewritten for this browser session the user's experience here. Their DOM, the HTML within this session, has been rewritten. So they're sitting on cyber.co, but they think they're sitting on some login form. Now if a user put in their credentials here and they submit, that form is actually an attacker-controlled form because I had control of what was being rewritten to the screen, and it's actually posting my username and password to evil bad site, and now I've just gotten my credentials stolen. So you can see how that might be an issue. Now here's a quick way to identify simply if your site has issues with wildcard DNS entries. You can use this tool called knock.py. We can look for wildcard, and we put in the domain we want to check it out, and we can see that it has wildcard enabled because what it does is it just prepends some random value before the domain name. I mean, you could test that manually too using some tools, but knock is not a bad way to go. So here you see the issue. I hope it's clear for you. Thanks.